All right, guys, in this video, I am really excited to bring one of my longtime mentors in the real estate industry, Mr. Kris Krohn. Kris he's amazing. He's dynamic. And guys, it's a little bit of a different sort of narrative in this video because typically we're talking about how to buy and sell houses. And Kris has like a different take on things. He believes that instead of spending all of your money in the house that you're going to live in, he believes that you should invest somewhere in real estate and really start making passive income. So guys, I think you're gonna like this treat with Kris Krohn. And so let's go ahead and get started. And afterwards, drop your comments. All right, Kris Krohn, thanks so much, man, for being on our show. You know, I have been serving the real estate industry since 1989 in one way or another. I started out swinging a hammer, Kris, and you've been a big mentor for me. I mean, I've been watching your channel for about, I'm older than you, but I've been watching you for, I guess, almost 10 years.
Okay.
And
all right.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Your strategies, all your whiteboard analogies, you know, you are such a great teacher. And, you know, I'm just so honored to bring you to our audience here. Guys, I want you all to, you know, comment. If you're watching this, you have a question for Kris, we'll make sure that he gets it. But guys, this guy is going to bring some amazing value. I know a lot of you are sitting on the sidelines. You have been for many years hoping to buy a home. And Kris believes that you can buy, and it's true, I've done it myself, in any market. You just have to be smart about it. You have to know what you're doing. And guys, I think you're going to like this video. So Kris, before we jump in, tell everybody who Kris Krohn is.
Yeah. So I've done, over the last 20 years, I've done about $2 billion worth of single family homes, about 6,500 projects. It's a machine. It's automated. I think when I was 21, I had this telemarketing gig and I was talking to people on the phones, and I noticed that in this particular avatar that we were talking to, they're always in their 50s. They had been 401k, IRAing, they had gone to college, and they had been really, I think, a more conservative subset of society. And what I noticed is that they were all in panic. They were within a decade of what they hoped retirement would be. They had more of their net worth in equity than a whole lifetime of putting money in a 401k or IRA. And it was almost like their eyes were being opened for the first time. And they realized, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. And why is this house that I have lived in as a home, why is it actually done more for me than society's retirement game plan? And that ignited a whole journey for me. I bought 25 homes by the time I got out of college. I had a 6-figure residual income, so I quit my job. I never had corporate work life ever again. You know, and then 25 properties became 50, became 100, became 1,000, became thousands. And along the way, I picked up hundreds of businesses. And today, I love educating people on how to break out and break free from society's broken, archaic model. And then I think that includes today's conversation, Todd, because there's a ton of people that doesn't matter whether you're watching Fox or CNN, they've got this whole fear, blood in the streets, do nothing, you're paralyzed, blah, 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 inflation, you know, the Fed's hiked interest rates, and people are just scared to do anything. I'm like, are you kidding me? Recessions, 2008, the Great Recession was when I made more money, $100 million for my partners and my investors during the 5 worst real estate years since the Great Depression. I'm like, are you guys kidding me? Recessions are great. Now is not the time to do nothing. Now's the time to freaking like get off your butt and cause something, because fortunes are built right now, not when the going is good.
Yeah, well, you know, there's a lot to unpack with that. And you're right. I mean, it's, you know, we've watched, you know, I'm a real estate broker here in Maryland, and we help a lot of first-time buyers. And, you know, over the last 2 years, I mean, it's really been tough. Well, I mean, I'd even say over the last 3 years, started with the pandemic. And, you know, when everybody, you know, they were kind of wondering what was going to happen with the economy. I think people are still wondering about that now. And, you know, but I guess the big concern is it's just the unaffordability. You know, I mean, and so many people, I see so many young people, they're so stressed out. They feel so much pressure because they're watching their friends get married and, you know, buy houses. And, you know, it's like they have, you know, in their mind that they should be somewhere that they're not right now. But, you know, it's interesting that you said that, you know, dealing with these 50-year-olds, and I put myself in that category, you know, it's amazing how many people aren't prepared for retirement, and they've invested in this home that, really has just kind of, as a house that they're living in, it's kind of kept them poor in a lot of ways, right? I mean, they're furnishing, they spend money on, repairs and things like that. And they overspend. A lot of people overbuy on the house that they live in. And I have a friend of mine that is a stockbroker, and he said that, it's amazing how many people get to be at the retirement age, and the house is the only investment that they've ever made, number one. And number two, the only way to get that investment out is to do like some kind of a reverse mortgage now, or, basically liquidate their house and live off of whatever investment. So before we get started here, man, I want to take you back to one of my favorite videos with you. And it's in 2014. And guys, we're going to play a couple clips. Is that all right? Can I do that?
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. Clip one.
Welcome to REI TV, and this week we're going to be talking about something really important in the real estate world, which is how do you value a property? How do you evaluate a property? And you know what? There's going to be different methods for doing that depending on where we're at in the market cycle. Is the real estate market in a bubble? Did it just pop? Are we in a trough? Is it in a comeback? That's going to play a huge factor. In this video, we're going to explore the two major methods for how we evaluate properties.
Dude, that's like 9 years old, but the content is still, it's actually even more relevant today than it even was back then. This whole notion of how you evaluate something, and your question on affordability, I mean, we are in really freaky times, because if you evaluate where we're going to be in 10 years, you right now have some of the largest hedge funds. They have amassed $55 billion and growing. Their goal is to take down over the next decade 10% of all available real estate housing available to people. And they want, if you take a look at the World Economic Forum, they want real estate to become a service. They want to expunge from this American dream concept, the whole idea of a home. What they don't want you to own cars, houses, or anything. They really want you to be like ants inside of an ant farm that is really being controlled by a lot of other people. And I'm like, are you kidding me? The average person at 65 years old has $255,000. That's the 2023 data on 401ks and IRAs. And you give that to a financial planner. I mean, I'm assuming that if you build your money in a conservative model of 401k and IRA, that you'll probably retire your money the same way, which means you're going to annuitize it. And if you go off of the 3 to 4% rule, that's going to produce $800 a month of interest for you for the rest of your life. And the weird thing is, at age 54, you hit your peak earnings and spending of about $85,000 a year. So the whole notion of Social Security plus $800 a month, that's a no bueno. That is a no-go. And yet you've got more than $255,000. We're equity rich right now in this country, because obviously anyone that's owned a real estate for the last couple of years, it went up 40%, 41% nationwide. And so you got people sitting on equity. Affordability is not where it needs to be. And the question I think everyone's asking is, do I just keep waiting? Is it going to come down? And Todd, man, you might hate me for bringing me on your show, because I'm going to drop a bomb right now that not a lot of people are going to appreciate. You're going to have to divorce the old ways. You're going to have to let old things die to make room for new things, which means all the people, dude, the young man sitting right next to me right here, and his name is Ethan. He's doing all my camera work, and he's young. How old are you? 28. He's 28 years old, and he's like, Kris, I'm like, should I buy a first house? And I'm like, brother, this is a rare moment in the economy where I don't know if buying a home is what you should be doing. But buying an investment property 100% should be the priority, because either way, you need real estate to work for you. And you're right. It is, Todd, challenging for someone to step into that with affordability as awful as it is right now for people.
So do you think that, you said a lot with the narrative of what you're really getting at is rent and be happy, right? I mean, that's where the World Economic Forum, I mean, is that where you're headed with that?
I am not saying rent and be happy. Okay. I'm saying that in this particular season, the numbers are not making sense. And yet in certain investment markets, they are. You see, here's the complexity. There are 324 markets that make up the United States. I only buy in 5 of them. By the way, they're all red states, so they're all landlord driven, right? In a lot of the blue states, real estate investors are getting hosed and screwed, which means that the macroeconomics on getting my money to perform is what I'm interested in. Your buyers are all saying, Todd, I want a home. Like, I want a home for me and my family. And I'm saying, hey, that might be what's important to you in this season of your life, but you're going to wake up someday in your 50s and say, what do I do for retirement? And real estate will have been a boat that you may have missed, especially if you are focusing on a home. instead of investments. Because I always tell people, hey, assume for just a moment that you get to retirement, and let's say you have $300,000 of equity in your home. Let's use these numbers: $333,000 of equity. What's your number one regret going to be if you weren't a millionaire? I wish I had bought 2 more. Because if I had 3 homes with $333,000 in each one, I'd be a millionaire. And by the way, if 3 homes taste good, then 6 homes is going to taste a whole lot better. So, what I am saying, Todd, is that I want everyone to own a home 100%. But look at this. The 65-year average on appreciation is 4.65%. The last 2 years, 20%. It's 4+ times higher than it normally is. And that's for 2 years in a row, which means that the median, the way I track it, the national median should be sitting right around 280 to 290 grand. Right now it's $425,000. So that discrepancy has to be corrected, and it will eventually correct. And so it would be unfair for me to say you should buy a home or you shouldn't buy a home. What I would say is, in certain markets, I wouldn't buy a home. I would invest. And in certain markets, you can buy a home where affordability on, where you can still buy under the median by 20 or 30% and still buy in the $250,000 or $400,000 range, go buy a home. But for markets that are really out of whack right now, where a primary residence is $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, well, when that market does correct, you're going to feel that one. It's going to be an ouch for a lot of people, and it's going to cause a spike in foreclosures of homes going back to the banks. And so it's tricky right now to answer that, Todd, because we have all these different markets. And in some markets, it's like, sure, buy a home. But in most of them, it's like, you should be focusing on it. Don't miss out on real estate. The boom is coming. The next 2 decades are the best 2 decades we've seen in the last century as we participate in this correction. Because think about it. Last drop right here. We've got 5 million missing homes in this country. We know that there's going to be a new president in 2 years. So we know that the Fed, to give Biden administration his best shot at reelection, guess what they're going to have to do to the rates?
They're projected up. Yeah, they got to drop it down
until you get to election season, and then to prop up its popularity, they're going to have to drop rates, because high rates is not producing popularity. The 40-year average on interest rates, we're actually just barely below it. We have forgotten that with our short-term memories, because the last 10 years we've had free money, and so I think that over the next 2 years, especially with inflation now for the first time dropping under 5%, the Fed is going to start dropping those rates. And it would be politically smart for them to do that. And the moment they do that, guess what? I believe what is going to happen to the value of real estate with the supply and demand disparity of 5 million missing homes, it's going to shoot the value of real estate even further north. So yes, I am buying as much as I possibly can, but I'm an investor. I'm not talking about my own personal residence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for someone that is young, I mean, are you giving them that advice? I mean, if they're not married, they don't have kids, or even if they are married and they're just starting out, I mean, are you saying that they should invest before they buy their primary residence, or should they?
Not normally. Okay. Not normally. I mean, think about house hacking, like a 3% down payment. But here's the problem. When you talk about the long-term affordability, take Utah, the market that I'm in right now. Right now, your very ultimate entry-level home is $400,000 to $500,000. It's very difficult to find a home for under $400,000. So when you're making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, $400,000, that's crazy. So yeah, 3% down payment on that's like $12,000, some closing costs at the seller. Maybe you're $15,000 out of pocket, but now you're really mortgage fat with today's interest rates. And that's going to bury someone unless you're making more like $80,000, $90,000 a year, $100,000 a year. And that's still a struggle. That used to be a dream home 4 or 5 years ago. So for someone in Utah that's young like Ethan, I'm like, bro, instead save up a little bit more money and go do a down payment on a market where my average purchase price is $250,000, $240,000, and the cap rate and the return on that, we're averaging over 30% annual ROI on our money. So you can either have a primary residence in that type of market and struggle, or go to a strong investment market and kill it. So I just don't want people to get hurt. And some markets have priced that the affordability, they've just been priced out of the market for the moment until there's a correction.
Yeah. Do you think that correction is going? Do you think that the current administration is going to be able to keep it propped up long enough? I mean, obviously, they say there's only really 2 ways for the Biden administration to stay in office, right? One would be the economy to be doing great, thriving, or us to have a war. I mean, I don't know, I mean, how do you think they're going to make it to the election without the collapse? Do you think we're going to see a housing market collapse in the next 12 months? You think we're at the top?
Yeah. So I think it's important to understand that when we use the word recession, you always have to separate out the financial markets from the real estate market, because 2 of every 5 recessions does not include real estate. 3 of them are market drops, not real estate drops. In fact, in 3 out of 5 recessions, real estate goes up in value while the rest of the market is dropping. This is definitely that type of recession. If there was a year when we were going to feel a drop, it'd be this year. Zillow originally forecasted a 1% correction, and now they're not even claiming that anymore. It's different when you're missing 500,000 homes in the country than when you're missing 5 million. Historically, we have never had such a lack of supply of real estate. And so that's what's creating this really weird market force tension that we're experiencing right now. And I think it's actually doing a good thing. It is forcing people to think differently, because if you don't, take a look for just a moment at the middle class. The middle class a decade ago was sitting somewhere right around 60%. Now it's at 50%. It has shrunk substantially. Half the people are going into the poverty bracket. Half of the people are going into the wealth category. And so it's even. It's been 6s every year for the last decade. And so you basically have, when we talk about the poor getting poorer, there's getting more of them, and the wealthy are getting wealthier. During COVID, we saw a spike of 5 million new millionaires. So some people are looking at things like AI, like I do, and they're like, this is the greatest thing ever. Might end up, building robots that destroy us in the end, but this is economically the best thing ever for me. And for other people, they're not embracing it. They're behind the times, and they're getting washed out. They're getting left behind. So Biden administration, man, I have a very, very difficult time imagining a world where Biden is reelected, just based on, despite the amazing sounding State of the Union address with all of his wins. I looked up the facts on everyone. I think everything was a lie. I don't think there was any, I don't know how they twisted the numbers, but I didn't get any of that. I think we are sitting right now 6 months in an 18-month recession. And yeah, we might be pulling out of it in time for that new election a little bit, moving at least in that direction. So I'm not really sure. But what I do know is that the current administration wants to do some really weird things, like abolishing 1031s. They want to double capital gains from 20 to 39%. All of these things are awful for real estate. And I have a hard time imagining those things would ever shift. And Todd, if they don't, real estate will probably remain one of the greatest bets for how you can become retire a multimillionaire with very little passive effort on the side. That's a focus on investing, not, buying just a home for you and your family.
Yeah, and that's what I'm concerned about. I mean, I see it as, a lot of these people, they just can't afford it. They're jumping in with both feet, and, based on 2 incomes. So, there's always the thought of, what happens if somebody loses a job. And Kris, we're watching these people, man. I mean, they don't have money to put down. So we're back now asking for seller contributions, the seller to pay the closing cost. And, and so I'm really concerned, and the prices, we are probably right there in the same price range as you are. $450,000 doesn't get you a whole lot. In fact, I have a young couple with kids, and we have a search for them over 4 counties around Baltimore City, not in the city. They want to be outside of the city, but 4 counties surrounding it. Their criteria is they have to be under $550,000, and they need 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. Okay.
How many homes are you finding on the market like that?
7 homes available in 4 counties under $550,000, right? That are livable. That they can get financing on, because, there's distress, not a lot of it, but there is distress. But that distressed inventory is so ridiculously overpriced too. The numbers don't work. What does somebody do?
Yeah. So first of all, these things work themselves out in cycles. Let's jump all the way forward to Gen Z. Did you know that 94% of them want to be entrepreneurs? They're looking at the whole college piece of paper that says I'm smart, going to $250,000 of debt, 9 to 5, 40-year thing. You know what they do when they look at that? They're like, are you kidding me? Who signed up for that program? That's a joke. My generation was like, that was the gold standard. And to that generation, they're basically saying, no, we want flexibility. We want mobility. They don't actually care very much about owning stuff, unfortunately, because over the last 2 generations, from the boomers to where we're at today, we've seen wealth drop 5-fold in people's bank accounts of what they have at this age, like as in the millennials, are 5 times less money than because they're not valuing what the previous generations did. But according to modern medicine, they're going to certainly live a lot longer. So it's kind of scary times. But Gen Z, I think, is like, oh, we got to be hustlers. We want to be entrepreneurs. We want to own businesses. And statistically, a business owner is going to earn more than a W-2er. So I think part of the solution is like, well, you're asking, what do we do right now? Should they buy a home? And I'm saying, well, the bigger picture is the reason why they're in this bind. We can point the finger and say, this is the government. This is boosted up interest rates. This is a supply and demand issue. This is market force outside of the control. I always take the finger and turn it inward and say, how do I come into control? And you know what it is? Make more money. And if you can't do that job, then start a business, become an entrepreneur, buy into other companies, buy businesses. We're in the largest wealth transfer. The next 7 years, we will end the largest wealth transfer in history, where you have all of these baby boomers that are taking, many of them, very successful businesses that are making 6 figures, some of them even 7 figures. They're not selling them. Over 70% of them are just going to go to the grave and die because they don't have any kids to hand them off to. And they haven't thought, I maybe should list and sell this thing, because to them, their business isn't an asset. It's just something they do to make money, and they've gotten good at it. And so the solutions are out there. And so for someone that's like, geez, the difference between 400,000 and 600,000, man, I'm like, honestly, all you got to do is make an extra 50 grand a year, make an extra 100 grand a year. How do you do that? Well, that's why a lot of what I do is teaching people how to invest in real estate. But then beyond, it's like, are you kidding me? There's franchises to buy. There's businesses to buy. You don't have to start a business from scratch. You can get into businesses that are absentee owner status. There's a lot of things that people can do. I think they got to focus ultimately on building wealth. That's the solution. Yes, do it through owning real estate, Todd. But I also, what's missing right now is cash flow. They need more active sources of income. And that doesn't mean go get a second and a third job. It means earn money smarter.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, there are so many that are stuck in their job right now. And, I mean, if they get a 10% reduction in pay, they're devastated. I mean, they have no backup plan. They have they're stuck. And, it's funny. What you just said is very interesting about, the Gen Zs. So about 5 years ago, it was 2017, I went to a BOMA, Building Owners and Managers Association conference down in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was based on the IoT, Internet of Things. And they said, I mean, first of all, it was so amazing, the insight and the intel. And, and we're seeing it now. I think COVID slowed a lot of what was happening down in many ways, because people didn't really know how to respond to it. And so, but anyway, they said that within 10 years, that 50% of our workforce would be independent contractors, self-employed people. And it's amazing that you said that. I have spoken with a couple in their, people in their 20s and even in their early 30s. And they're like, I want to freelance. I want to do this. I want to start this. I want to get my side hustle going on. Yes. So that's true. That is really happening. So I think that, for businesses, the big businesses, they're always looking for ways to cut costs. And, as an employer, I know employees are one of our biggest costs, right? If we have somebody on the payroll, but these guys can come back in as independent contractors, do a job better than any employee would in a lot of cases, because they're motivated. It's their own thing. They're, going to make a couple extra dollars in their pocket, and the business is going to save a ton of money too.
Yeah, but that's just part of it. The independent contractor is definitely going to be a trend, Todd. But World Economic Forum also predicted by 2025 that 70 million jobs were going to get taken by AI. So when you take a look at the tech layoffs just the start of this year, Q1, 130,000 lost jobs, people are like, oh, is that an indication that there's a problem in the economy? No, that's an indication that AI has begun its nationwide sweep. Right now, there's all sorts of careers that are totally at risk of just being evaporated by AI. Yeah, November changed everything. And that's really going to force people to focus on how they can create value in the world and how to be far more creative, because this whole, you can go to college and get, a couple $100,000 in debt and then get a piece of paper that says you're smart and then you'll be secure for 40 years. That's not true anymore. There's a huge wake up call. And for anyone that is resisting or has friction against the idea of multiple streams of income, side hustles, or some kind of entrepreneurial spirit, or more importantly, just even passive investing. The problem with the 401k and the IRA, everyone's been told by these financial experts that that's the thing to do. What people don't know is that when Albert Einstein said that compound interest is the most valuable, it's the greatest financial invention of our day and age, he wasn't talking about compound interest that was single digit. Because let's check it out. Your 30-year average on a 401k is 5%. Your 30-year average on an IRA is 7%. Most people's blended return is 6% on, call it 50 grand over 20 years. Nothing. The money triples. 50 grand turns into 160. Yeah. So it's all like, wait a second. This is why people can only save at best on average a couple $100,000 for retirement. Yeah. And that's because single digit doesn't work. Real estate, I consistently produce a double digit. And it means that you can make millions in decades. If you graduate to triple digit or quadruple digit, you're now doubling your money, according to the rule of 72, literally in weeks and months. And so I have people that are becoming millionaires in less than 5 years and less than a year. And all they're doing is saying, I got to think different. 401ks doesn't work. I got some money there. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to have to do some different things because the traditional model, that's what's burying me.
Well, I want to kind of, now that segues us right into how do you find property, the value of property. And I want to listen to another clip here because you hit the street here and then we're going to play one more clip and then we'll start unpacking it.
All right. I like it.
How, Megan, do you know if a real estate property is worth investing in or not? What would make it a good deal or bad deal?
Well, if it's inspected and if it's certified by somebody.
I think you need to investigate first what is the place, and depending on that and the information that you gain, you will be able to know.
By the way, when I would ever interview people on the game of real estate, I would walk away and think we're a little bit like, I sometimes feel like our system just has us like rats in this ongoing hamster wheel. And I'm like, real estate and finance in general, anyone can become a multimillionaire. There's rules. You play the game, you follow the rules, you get rich. Like it really is that, but you just can't get people for the most part interested in the game of money. So they get focused on career, safety, security, family. They meet Dave Ramsey. They're like, we can accumulate ourselves to freedom. I'm like, no, you won't. I had this couple on stage at my last event. I put on events, by the way. I own my own event center here in Utah. People come from all over the world once a quarter. In fact, I'm giving some free tickets away. Todd, for anyone here that's watching, they can go to freewealthgift.com. freewealthgift.com and you can go ahead and register and I'm going to give you a free ticket. And so I had this couple on stage with me and they were making about $80,000 a year. She was a stay-at-home mom. He was working and they had been 401k and on IRA for the last decade. They had about $160,000 set aside, big Dave Ramseyites, and they had about 20 more years to go. And they said, well, by our calculations, we're going to have over $3 million. And I just looked at them and I said, you're not going to break a mill. And when you don't, you're going to say we were wrong and spent 3 decades on the wrong game plan. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, then is the calculator lying? I said, of course it is. People don't understand that. I won't get into it, but they have math on the financial calculators for 401k and IRA performance where they can basically record the upside. They don't have to remove all the downside. And it makes people look like they're going to get rich. And it's a horrible scam. But no, a lot of people literally are just sold. The system is in our DNA and indoctrinated inside of us. And it's just broken. So I know that you probably want to talk about real estate and values, but that was my tangent I took with that, Todd.
Yeah. But anyway, I want to talk about the decisions when people walk into houses. Sometimes it's like, I'll show someone a house and they're like, we could never buy this house. It has pink paint. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? That's why we tell people, it's like, come on, man, get your house neutralized because it's crazy. Or they'll say I had somebody say too much wallpaper. We looked at like 15 houses, wrote 8 offers that we were turned down on. And this house was perfect. And all of a sudden I'm looking at it, I'm going, what's up, man? Too much wallpaper?
Part of what I think you have to deal with on a daily basis, there's a difference between a consumer that wants to buy a house and an investor that is buying an investment property, right? And I think one of the big financial mistakes that people make is that when it comes time to buying a home, they're really trying to find a dream home. And what that usually means is they're going to max out, they're going to spend more than they should, and they're just looking for the perfect setup because they're looking for having it all right here in this moment. But there's not a whole lot of delay of gratification in some people's minds. And so, yeah, they don't understand. It's like, well, it's $20 for a bucket of paint, right? You can fix that problem. Because they would rather pay a higher price and get something that is just perfectly outfitted for them. And I just want to pause and say, hey, listen, anyone can become wealthy. Step one, pay yourself first. When you get your paycheck, you make sure that the biggest amount of money you pay yourself doesn't go to your mortgage, your bills, your cell phone, your anything. It goes to you. Step two, once you're done stashing cash, then you invest it. Invest it in real estate. Everyone here, if you're a fan of Todd's, I want you to light up his cell phone and I want you to connect with him and his team and say, I'm done looking for a house just for me and my family. I want to be an investor. By the way, my wife is from Maryland. It's a wonderful market. It's awesome. Beautiful. You got the cherry blossoms that are probably coming out right about nowish. And I got to say that, becoming an investor and buying multiple properties that produce high ROI, that is a way to be passive and to create wealth. So you can still focus on family and career. This stuff doesn't make you a full-time anything. There's always a passive approach.
That's good tips. Let's watch this last clip because then we're going to ask you how to do it.
What is a property really worth? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it depends on where we're at in the market. And there's two different major methods that you'll want to be familiar with. And I'm going to share them with you right now. First of all, when we're talking about what something is worth, let's get some of the facts straight. Real estate over time always does what in value? It goes up in value. But I think we're all pretty clear that it doesn't work this way. Well, let me draw it a little bit different here and exaggerate this drawing. All right. Real estate over time has these things that we call bubbles, and it has these things that we call troughs. And I want to give you a little bit of history on this because you're going to evaluate your properties different in cash flow markets as you are in these troughs. And I want to throw out this little disclaimer. With the right strategy, you can make money in both of these markets. If you got the right strategy, it doesn't matter what the market's doing, but you do have to know how to value a property.
Yep, you're definitely going to evaluate properties different in a bubble than a trough than a normalized market. Man, you're like, can't believe that video, 9 years old. It's still out there on the market. There we go.
It's still out there. One of my favorite guys. We're dropping that entire video in the link below, and also many more of Kris's links as well. You definitely don't let this be the last time that you hear about Kris Krohn and that you don't connect with him because he's very smart. He's helped me, like I said, throughout the years. I mean, he's been a mentor, watching his videos, watching these whiteboard sessions, and really, and like I said before, Kris, a teacher. You are a great teacher. And I think that, people should pay attention. I mean, you've put it to work. You've put it to the test. You've helped probably hundreds of thousands of people, in change their life, change their world and, looking at things differently, getting up out of the ditch essentially and putting themselves, in the right direction. So Kris, we've talked about it. Are we in a bubble right now? Is this the bubble?
I think we're in a very, very funky bubble because the market is going to have to do some kind of correction, not crash, correction. And the reason why I say there's not going to be a crash is because we're missing 5 million homes. And unfortunately, if the Fed does over the next year or two lower those rates, I think that we're going to see the market continue to go up. I see a number of markets around the United States. One of the things I specialize in is when someone can't buy real estate productively in their own backyard, or when it comes with risks that we can't mitigate, or the price point is just too high. Imagine for a moment this. If you had a time machine, right? And you had Biff's Almanac from Back to the Future 2. And if you could go back to any great city, New York, LA, Seattle, Orange County, and buy real estate in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, we would all say, no brainer. That would be so smart. Why? Well, because we see what's happened then. What causes a city to boom and exponentially and asymmetrically increase beyond the rest of the national median has to do with macroeconomics. And it has to do largely with population centers, has to do with migration patterns, and it has to do with economic expansion. So for example, one of the markets that I invest in is Florida. I've been there for a decade. I thought 2 years ago I would have moved out, but I'm buying central Ocala around the Orlando market, and they've got like $20 billion of stimulus going in that area. So you've got the economic stimulus. You've got 500,000 people that left New York last year, 500,000 people left California last year. Half of those people went to Florida. So it's a massive migration pattern. You have people in Florida that make $80,000 a year. The average family moving in makes $120,000. So you have all this economic stimulus happening in that part of the country. And that's one of the 5 markets that I invest in based on the macroeconomics. Well, my average purchase price is 230, 240, 250 grand. But over the next 2 or 3 years, especially with where rates are going, that market could easily become $500,000. And what that does to my ROI is it takes my projected 25 to 35% ROI, and in hindsight makes it closer to 80 to 90%. This is how we help people create massive amounts of wealth in a very short period of time and stacking the deck in their favor. And it has to do with buy real estate in your backyard, buy in your area. But when the economics don't line up, then you want to go to the markets that make the most sense. And Todd, I don't know if you know this, but for the last decade, I have people that meet me through my millions of views of social media every week, and then they actually partner with me. And it's often money sitting in a dusty 401k or IRA or equity in another home, and they want to access the really high, safe ROIs. And I bring them into these markets. And what I do is I basically help them build wealth. And so that is a solution for some people. But beyond that, I would say, if you can, become entrepreneurial and figure out how to create multiple streams of income, because your job's probably not going to hack it. Final answer to that question is yes, it is a bubble, but the moment rates come down, that bubble's probably going to get bigger before it pops.
Kris, what are the other markets that you invest in? You said you invest in 5.
Yeah. So Tennessee, Alabama, Oklahoma, those are 3 more of my markets. I call those cash flow markets. There's huge economic stimulus going into them. And these are great examples of markets where I can buy homes for $200,000, $250,000. I get them 30% below that median in that area. Those markets are generally 10 to 20% lower than national affordability. So it's an area, it's a part of the country that, again, migration patterns, companies, people are fleeing to. And then we pick specific areas where Ford says we're going to dump X billions into building a new plant here, and Tyson says we're going to open up our new this here, and so we specialize in those areas that where we know for the next decade it's just going to be juicy. Oklahoma oil, oh my gosh, yes, huge investment into that market.
Well, years ago when I was doing, I was on a team before I started my brokerage, and I used to when I was helping investors, and I primarily helped investors and got into more of the commercial side of things. But, I would sit at the zoning hearings. I would go to every one of them in, the county that I worked in, primarily in Baltimore County. And I mean, it was to the point where I met the engineers and the attorneys, because they would be like, "Hey, you're always here. Are you like a reporter? I mean, what do you do?" And, because they always start out, this, undisclosed buyer looking at this, 47 acres over on such and such or whatever. And sometimes it starts years in advance, right? But it's so true. I mean, if you can follow where that growth is going and know what's happening around it, I mean, that's great. That's good insight.
Yeah. Path of progress. So on that same gift to have for everyone, freewealthgift.com, we have, I think I've got a free download to my latest book, Have It All. It talks about 5 ROIs that can make anyone wealthy in less than 5 years, very safe and securely. I've got tickets out to my next event in August. I've got, for example, every quarter I put on an event. People come from everywhere. It's a 4-day, very intensive, entire wealth training summit. A lot of psychology, as well as, the 5 practical standard approaches to building wealth for me. And then I also have a free consultation if anyone wants to look into partnering. Okay, Kris, what does partnering look like? So freewealthgift.com is a place where anyone can go and basically pick up some freebies, get some more education. I think, Todd, that's why I'm here, is that you're really looking for options for your buyers that are feeling stuck right now. The last piece of advice I would give is ignore the media. You like turn off the news if it's messing with your brain, because it is designed to produce ratings. And right now, what will produce ratings is doom and gloom. It's going to tell you that it is the worst of times. And if you follow some of the world's wealthy, like Warren Buffett, we are counter-cyclical. When everyone says no, we say yes. When everyone says yes, we say no. Everyone should be buying, Todd, you're right. Everyone should be buying real estate right now. And honestly, in my world, I was there in 2008 and I bought thousands of homes. And you know what my biggest regret of 08 was? I mean, as a 28-year-old young man, this was my first recession, and man, was it a good one. And my biggest regret is that I didn't roll up my sleeves and 10x my volume back then. Because if I did, I'd be a billionaire. And I didn't. And I swore to myself, the next recession, I'm going all in. Guess what I'm doing right now? I'm buying as much real estate as I possibly can.
All right. Well, cool, man. Well, they're great tips, guys. If, check out Kris's links in our show notes and reach out to him, stay close to him. And we appreciate those tips on those markets too, Kris. And man, we really appreciate you being on our show.
Awesome. Todd, appreciate you. Appreciate everybody. Good luck. This recession is not the worst of times. It's most definitely the best of times.
All right. Well, thank you. God bless. And guys, we will see you next time. Wow. There you have it, guys. So I hope you picked up some good nuggets from that with Kris. And, as I said before, leave your comments below. Check out Kris's links in our show notes. And guys, I hope that you found great value, at least as much as I did. If you like this video, you can hit the thumbs up. It'll let Kris and I know that you did. And as always, guys, we love it when you subscribe to our channel, smash that alert bell. You'll be notified every time we upload content just like this. See you next time.
Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.